the meditation I did for getting over imposter syndrome seems to be relatively permanent without having to do much maintenance. It still requires some maintenance, but very little.
Can you go into that more?
Yeah. So I had like I was like a confident child, and then I was working at 80,000 hours in Oxford, and that's like basically what gave me my imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Because that was the first time, like, I mean, it's based in Oxford, the city in England, and I went from being the sort of person who was usually just kind of like the most competent person in my area, or like at least at the top all the time, like really obviously. And then so it was like easier to feel confident. And then I went into a place where it's like, oh wow, everybody's ridiculously competent. Like, like oh God. And this kind of messed with my and then also I just had like set myself like ridiculously high standards for how to do good in the world. And so I just like was like just really low confidence, constant anxiety. I described my confidence out of 10, at least when it came to work stuff, was like a 3 or something out of 10 for most of the last 10 years. Very occasionally, if I had enough to drink or something, maybe I could go up to an 8 or something, but it was only if I was drinking.
Okay. That's not sustainable long term. I don't think that was the secret to over happiness. I'm hoping
exactly, just drink all the time. Yeah.
Cat Woods, you heard it here first.
And I tried everything. I tried CBT. I tried just regular mindfulness meditation. I tried acceptance and commitment therapy. I tried just a million IFS, internal family systems. I tried everything. I tried so many things, and nothing worked. It just like really was not. It did not stick. And then earlier this year, I took the Finder's course, and which is right now being called the 45 Days to Awakening, but I'm just like refusing to call it that because what if they want to change it? It used to be longer than 45 days. Like they shouldn't have called it that. Anyways, Jeremy, if you're listening, or Jeffrey, Jeffrey, if you're listening, change the name. Read my article on how to change, how to choose names. But anyways, so I took the Finder's course, and they basically the first week they had you do an hour a day of loving kindness meditation. And the general practice that I was doing there is what you do is you think of somebody that's really easy to feel loving kindness towards. Loving kindness is like, you could just call it like feeling love or something, but like I like loving kindness because it kind of gets more at that like more of like the warm vibe. It's not like romantic love, which can be easy to get into. But anyway, so somebody who just feel like lots of warmth and connection towards, and really generate that feeling in your head. Just really think about that person. It's really easy. And then once you've kind of got that stabilized a little, think of somebody who's a little bit harder to feel that love and kindness towards, but keep that same level of emotion, right? So keep like the level that you had for like the top person, but generate it for this person who's a little bit harder. And if you ever lose that feeling, go back to the easy person, regenerate again, and come back. And then once that's stabilized at like a nice level, then go to somebody who's a little bit harder, and eventually you get to like, strangers, and then eventually you get to, like the hardest person. It's like Hitler or yourself, whichever is harder for you. So like that's the general principle. I've always loved this practice. I just like it feels great. It's one of those ones where I feel like concentration practice I've tried, and it's just really hard to get into a good state with it. I've done it, and I have a whole bunch of other stuff on that. But like loving kindness has always been one of those ones where it's like, hey, I describe it like 95% of the time when I do a loving kindness meditation, I have a good time. It's just I'm feeling happy and good. But I'd only ever done it. I had like a bit of like this puritanical view in my head of like, if something is enjoyable, it can't be that useful or good. Like it's like you want to do the hard things that like, if you're suffering, that means it must be important.
Yeah.
Very well adjusted belief there. And so I'd only ever, and then also in the community, it's just not promoted that much. Like I feel like loving kindness practice is talked about in meditation classes, but usually it's like it's like 95% concentration practice, focus on your breath. And then there's like this tiny amount that occasionally you're like, okay, maybe we'll end the practice with loving kindness, or maybe we'll do loving kindness like once whatever. And in this class, it was like, no, you're going to do an hour of loving kindness practice every day for a week. Mm. And at first it was great. The first day I just had like a blast. And then the second day I was like, okay, well, I'm going to actually, I was sending love to everybody else, finding that really easy. And then I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna send it to myself. Surely that won't be that hard, right? Like I'm not that terrible of a human. No, it was very hard. I like immediately, the moment I started turning my loving kindness towards myself, it was like this huge wall came down. It was definitely, if you're familiar with like parts work in like internal family systems, it felt like there's this part of me that was like very strong saying like, no, you cannot love yourself. That will be the worst thing ever. Mm-hmm. And then I just like burst into tears. Yeah. And I was like, well, that seems like a totally healthy reaction. And I kind of interpreted this as like, this is a giant flashing neon sign saying like, work on this. Like this is that needs some work. So I just decided that the rest of the week, I was just going to do loving kindness directed towards myself. And I was just going to really try and work on that. Mm-hmm. And it was hard. Oh my God. Like my brain just would not, like I kept trying. Like, so I kind of broke it down into, saying like, okay, well, can I love myself when I'm doing good things? Can I think of myself doing good things? And then send love and kindness just towards that aspect of myself. And my brain was like, no. I was like, what if I'm doing bad things? Is that okay? No, definitely not okay. And then I was like, what about if I send love to myself as a child? Is that okay? I was like, no. I got all the way down to, can I love myself as a baby? Like, surely I haven't fucked up things so much that I can't love myself as a baby. Mm-hmm. And nope, still couldn't do it. I was just like, nope, I'm a chunky baby. Like, clearly you can't. Which of course is totally wrong. Fat babies are the cutest babies. So I don't know. My brain was, and then finally I was able to get my in by imagining my mom holding my baby self. And I was like, okay, like if I'm like, I know my mom loved me as a baby. And in general, and that was like my in, and I was able to start with that. That was like my easiest way to feel love to myself. And then I basically started graduating up from that. So I started with that as like the easiest one, and then I would try and think of some aspect of myself. I actually discovered that one of the next easiest things wasn't actually loving myself as a baby, but sending loving kindness to myself when I was suffering, because that's like just like an easier thing for me. Being like, oh, hey, you're suffering.
Was suffering, or when you were currently suffering?
Yeah. No, like past version of me. So I'd think of like hard times in my life, and I'd send loving kindness to myself in those periods of time. And yeah, so I was able to like then slowly build up and eventually get to the point where I was sending loving kindness to myself for like the stuff that I tend to have the most trouble with. And I think so. So this just unlocked a lot of stuff for me.